team. Welcome to today's conversation. This is our new series, and the series is all coach to coach, really all about finding joy on the journey to competitive greatness. And we have found joy. Joy, welcome to the team. How fun to be able to really have Joy be our coach that's going to take us just on this journey. I love the play from your name being exactly what it is that's our desired outcome. So that in itself is just a 10 for me. So welcome, Joy, to our conversation, and thank you for letting us be on a 10-week journey with you, really through finding joy and competitive greatness. So let's start with the power of your story. We know that you are in the college realm of sports right now. You've been in the pros. Let's really just talk about your journey and where you have found joy, mainly being in alignment with the person that you are.
Well, my journey started basketball from a young age as a player. So just really fell in love with the game at a really young age. Was fortunate to go to college on a basketball scholarship, a full scholarship, and play. So that was awesome. And then from there, kind of got into the coaching. I knew I wanted to stay involved in the sport. And so I was fortunate to get a coaching job at the University of Florida first as my first job as an assistant. Spent 12 years there, spent a year at Clemson as an assistant, and then I went on to be a head coach for 13 seasons, 4 at Murray State University and 9 at University of Central Florida. From there, got a chance to go to the WNBA and coach as an assistant coach with the San Antonio Stars, who are now the Las Vegas Aces.
Right.
So that was incredible because that was one of my big dreams, was to be able to coach at the professional level, work at that level. So that was a dream come true for me, and really enjoyed that. And then now have an opportunity to be back at the college level in a non-coaching role, but sort of in a role. It's called Director of Quality Control with Clemson women's basketball. And again, excited to be back in the team environment. Really like that. And also now able to use my experience and some of the things that I've learned throughout my journey to help the coaches, the head coaches, as well as the other assistant coaches, and also impart some of that hopefully to the players. So it's kind of a best of all worlds for me. Don't really get to be out on the floor, but I do get a chance to interact with the staff, the players on a daily basis. So that's a lot of fun.
And Joy, what a journey that's been for you, because it's great that you now are in a position where you can really help at a whole new level. You've gotten to play, so you certainly understand the mind of an athlete. You've been a coach, so you know the heart of a coach. And now just this conversation is really coach to coach. Everything that, we're going to go on the journey with you. Sports changed dramatically last year, and we're all re-entering and coming back and going forward. I mean, whatever language we want to use from that perspective. And so thank you for letting us be on the journey with you. And one thing I want to talk about just today for our first conversation is really just what you've learned on how to build a championship team, because everything we do is about people and relationships. And whether it's about a basketball or a corporate job, whatever it is, we're building these champion teams. And so if you watch your film from all your experience, when you bring it all together, what would you say are really the winning strategies for building a champion team?
I think for me, the winning strategies have really been first and foremost building relationships, and really, when you talk about building a team from the college level, we're talking about recruiting and also building your staff, which I think is the most important team to first get straightened out. So in terms of a championship staff, I think, again, really getting to know people. And I did that through asking questions, really trying to find the right questions to ask that were in alignment with my values. Really wanted to see who that person was and how they fit. I wanted to have a diverse group of people. So I'm very fortunate that I've been able to work with some really good coaches, assistant coaches, and the head coaches that I work for. And then in terms of building a championship program or translating that to on the court winning, the players make all the difference. And so just really, and it's a little tricky at times, really trying to fit those pieces together, but really getting to know your players, figuring out what pieces complement each other. And again, asking a lot of questions. I think throughout my recruiting days, that was something that I really was pretty good at, is gathering information to really try to figure out who they are, what they were looking for, if we really had a shot at them. Because some coaches get into a space where they just kind of waste time and spin wheels because the conversation's going pretty good, you think, but you haven't asked the questions that are really going to tell you the answer. So I think those are things that I really took a lot of pride in. Really like to just out of curiosity get to know not just the player, but their families, everybody that influenced them,
Mhm.
and just kind of watching that in action. I did a lot of watching when I would go recruit, watching the player, their interaction with the fans, with their families in the stands, with their coach, just to kind of some of those intangible things that would show itself. Because I knew if a player disrespected their coach or their mom and the way they talked to them, the way they answered back, then they probably wouldn't have a problem treating me that way too. And I didn't really want that. So, and I didn't want that for the rest of the women on the team. So a lot of tricky little components. So a lot of it is gut instinct also, because you might have one thought of what a player might bring. And so sometimes you just roll the dice, quite honestly, and go with your gut instinct. Just like in a relationship that you're going to enter into, you feel like you know the person, you spent some time, but you just hope they don't turn out to be a monster. So uh,
Well,
it
Joy,
was some of it, but a lot of fun.
yeah, one winning strategy I heard as you just talked through that is alignment. And
Hmm.
really, first of all, knowing the desired outcome, knowing exactly what our values are, what our mission is, and then aligning players, staff, team members, everybody with that vision and making sure that everyone's in alignment and we're all going in the same direction. And to me, when I think about that, I think about the power of team is that, there's no I in team that's been around forever and ever, but boy, that component of how to be a really strong me so that I can contribute to a really powerful we. And how have you figured out how to make sure that vision alignment and player and staff alignment creates that change in result?
Well, I think just constantly talking about it. I think one thing was just really having a lot of open conversations. I've always been, I grew up in a household where that was very present, in terms of communicating, open communication, no matter the topic, no matter what's going on. And I think that's something that I always tried to create with my staff, with my team members, support staff, anyone. So I think that's the first step, so that everybody makes sure that we're on the same page. I might think of a concept as one thing, and one of my athletes might have thought of it as something completely different, had never heard of it. So I think really just having that open communication was a huge winning strategy for me. Knowing that everyone's on the same page, everyone that was going to touch those athletes was on the same page with me and with the rest of our staff. So that was a big winning strategy to make sure alignment was in place.
Let's talk about intentional openness because in that communication, that sounds amazing. We'd all love to have it, but boy, knowing how to really have great conversations, be very honoring of everybody so that, when you're in a position of having teams and coaches, there's a power position. I mean, you control their playing time, you control people's careers, and being able to come in and have true conversations and be intentionally open about it. What would you say that you've learned from in the past that's really helped you come into this time? Wow, talk about a time of great change. I mean, we're all learning to have some really courageous conversations. What works and what doesn't work?
Well, I think the thing that works is really coming in with an open mind. And I, in all honesty, as a young coach, when I first started, it was kind of like, we're doing it this way, this way, this way. And it's kind of like my way or the highway. You come in and you have these ideas. And just really, as I evolved as a coach and the very good teams that I had, I just look back on those relationships, and we could be serious on the court. The communication was one thing, and I've always been pretty direct in my communication, but the level of empathy that kind of grew as I grew with the athletes, and really getting to know them um, beyond the court, and letting them know that I saw them, that, did a lot of things with them outside the court. Those are things that were really important to me. And then as I've grown even more, throughout being a head coach, now in my role that I'm in now, it's just the hard conversations are, really, I think, like like I've learned, all information is good information. So for me, when there's a conversation with an athlete, that's one thing I try to impart. First of all, letting them know that I'm for them. And so, because it's hard. I mean, it was hard for me a lot just to, not get defensive or things like that. So just really, letting people know that I'm here to listen, very open to what you're saying. And hopefully I'll get that in return, and we can have a dialogue. And some conversations are really tough, but I think that I am able to navigate a lot of those situations and really let people know that there's a compassion and that they're going to be heard.
So when we talk about the joy, the journey of the joy for competitive greatness, you're one of our certified sports life coaches. And for us, competitive greatness is the combination of truth, faith, and love. So you just talked about anchoring in truth and being able to say, let's have a truthful conversation. I'm for you. Another one of our major tools in terms of really just anchoring in being for each other. So the truth can be really tricky because, like my truth and your truth, we can have a difference even though our desired outcome is to come together and be in alignment. What have you found in terms of when you're going for a conversation about truth? How do we do that and honor that we probably could say some things that hurt each other's feelings or it comes off wrong? I mean, this is hard to do.
It's really hard, Carlette. I wish I had the cure all for that. But the thing about it is, and I, I'm always learning throughout some of these conversations, because some people look at truth as just negativity. And that's tough, and I guess that really depends on what the relationship is and those types of things. And sometimes that's a hard space for me because I've never been one to really sugarcoat. I have no problem being positive and I'm definitely going to tell people when they're doing great. But I also feel like sometimes in the space, and especially as a coach and as coaches, we have the responsibility to help our athletes and get to that point where, hey, we're helping you, but it like you said, it's hard for them to take that sometimes. So that's an ongoing thing. I think now that, I'm more experienced at it, a little bit older, just really making sure that they understand that, hey, I'm here for you, and let them, they might at first might not take it or get a little bit upset, but I just always circle back around and just continue to let them know that I'm for them. And so those conversations and really coming into the conversation, like, it's not easy. Just being very honest, like, this is not easy for me. I know it's not easy for you, but let's just talk about some things that are going to make us both better. And so I think approaching it that way for me has been a winning strategy. And like I said, I think that some of the athletes that I've helped, and even as recently as these last 2 years that I've been in my role, might have started like that. And now, we can talk about anything.
Yeah.
So it's really a neat thing to watch it come full circle.
Well, let's talk about criticism to compassion, because so many times we think that as soon as a coach or a boss or someone comes at us with wanting to have a conversation, just being a high achiever and being competitively great, having that competitive spirit, we go right to criticism, defensiveness. What have you learned just on your journey, and what are you committed to practicing going forward? I know our whole series is from today forward. It's like, hey, here we go. And so there's a lot of criticism going on in the world right now. We're in a tough situation, and we're committed to finding the compassion, the self-compassion, the learning. So what are your thoughts as we go from criticism to compassion?
I think really just I think for me personally, especially when I was a young coach, and let's say my athletic director called or one of my administrators, my first thought might be like, okay, what did I do? Or,
Yeah.
what is it that they don't like? And so I think human nature, sometimes we tend to think that way if it's a boss or whomever that might be, a parent, even for some, for some people. But I think the main thing is that we can't worry about, we're worried, we're getting anxious about something that hasn't even happened.
Yeah.
And so I really started to think about that and say, hey, they might be calling to tell me, hey, good job, or whatever it is. But I have really just, my self-talk has just been, I'm just going to listen. I really got to be open to listening. And I think a lot of the conversations with things that are happening right now in our world
Mhm.
can be helped by just that one thing, by listening, open listening, not listening to talk, but just
Right.
really listening to have some compassion and to have some understanding. So to me, listening has been a winning strategy in terms of, criticism to compassion. It's been good.
Well, I just want to build on that from a listening to a learning and leading. That's what our strategy is for leadership is first of all, listen, then what can we learn from the listening? And then how can we lead ourselves into change and others if we have that opportunity? So when we're listening, you said it beautifully, listening to learn and to receive versus listening to like get my point in there or defend myself or kind of bring the conversation back to me. So when we're setting ourselves up to go from criticism to compassion, we're anchoring and listening. How do you keep your heart and your mind really open to learning versus defending yourself or even, hurt people, right? We can get hurt by conversations. How have you really anchored in learning in that journey?
Yeah, that's ongoing sometimes because you get in conversations that you're passionate about something or the way that you think might work or that I think might work. And so maybe that's not the way. And
Mhm.
so I'm a lot better than I probably was 20 years ago,
Aren't
just
we
with,
all hopefully we're
you
all
know,
getting better? Yeah.
get the point across, but just really, all information is good information. And so just really anchoring in that fact, like, so that I'm excited to hear somebody else's point of view, why they feel that way, what I might be able to learn from something that they say, and not just being fixated on the whole time I'm listening, thinking not good, I hate it, I don't like it.
Right.
So really, just what can I learn from what they're going to say? All information is good information, and then going back and thinking about it, and if I might still feel the same way, but to me, I feel a lot better when I receive it like that or go into the conversation knowing that I'm going to probably learn something from that person.
And Joy, also, I really respect the passion component because that's what I am enjoying about this journey that we're on right now in terms of just our world is all of us are so passionate about being for each other and understanding each other. I mean, like we're in this huge season of change and it's pretty messy because we don't really have any idea how to do it. It feels like we have this great passion, but it's like, how do we do it? And sometimes our passion can come across as being, for what matters to us more than just being for the relationship or for the mission that we're on. I mean, there's a lot going on right now in terms of just passion management, purpose, and all that really great stuff. Let's talk about from performance to preparation because in sports we are very much about winning and performing, meaning that performance is about kind of getting the desired outcome that we want or achieving it. And yet truly it's about the preparation and how do we find joy in that journey of preparation so that when we perform it's about what we've learned about ourselves and that journey versus a win or a loss that we don't always have control over.
I think a lot of that preparation, there the preparation part to me in leading to performance, I think as a coach, we need to put, if we're talking about in terms of basketball or sport, put our athletes through or put them through. I always think about putting them through things that are going to be similar to
Mhm.
what their performance has to be in order to win and be successful.
Right.
So I think that's a big part of our job as coaches is that we have to put them in a position where sometimes the preparation is a little bit tougher
Yeah.
actually than the performing part. And I think that's huge. I think in anything, whether you're going to give a speech or whatever you have to do, the preparation is so key. And in that preparation phase, I think there needs to be wins and losses. There needs to be competition because you're going to face all those things when it's time to perform. When the lights come on, it's going to be time for you to look back, and hopefully you can look back at the preparation, and the coach might be able to call into play a time where, remember when we did this and we won the competition or we beat the clock or whatever it is, just to build confidence. So preparation to me just really can do a lot to build confidence. It's easy to, you know, let's say as a coach, have 3 or 4 bad practices and say, good job. And, it's a fine line. You're being positive, but you're not being truthful. So when we
Right.
get to our performance time, were we prepared for that? Are we really surprised at how we perform because of how we
Yeah.
prepared?
Yeah.
So if that makes sense, I just think that the preparation part leads to whether your performance is good or not good.
Well, and what I value so much about preparation is I don't want any surprises. I would love to practice every scenario that I can think of because that really is preparing me to whatever shows up, I'm somewhat prepared. Even if it's not exactly the same thing, I'm like, I kind of recognize, I
Right.
practice that in some fashion. So preparation, practice, practice, practice. We know in sports 90% of what we do is practice, 10% is performance, that game time. So really having to find the joy in the preparation versus just the game time or the performance. So there's a lot of anxiety out there right now with coming into re-entering and the world has gone through a lot. We have reason to, our hearts are tender, it's messy, there's a lot that's happening. Let's talk about anxiety to action. What have you found that has really worked? Let's start with you. I mean, I think all of us have some anxiety to a certain perspective, and we're learning how to take our anxiety to action. What's worked for you?
Um, I think, are you talking about just here recently or just at any
At
time?
any time, yeah, from the past, forward, whatever it is.
Yeah, I think obviously, well, I'm a coach. I was fired as a head coach at the end of my career in college. And so that's something that as coaches, we always know that it's out there and it's looming. But when it happens, it's kind of like, as a competitor, you want it to end when you want it to end. So after that, and not really being sure about did I want to stay in coaching, there was some anxiety that set in from that standpoint, just in terms of not being sure or being uncertain about do I want to do something else? I don't want coaching to necessarily define who I am. So just anxiety for me personally, when that happened about 5 years ago. And so then moving forward, just really taking some action. I spent some time and, kind of felt sorry for myself a little bit and, like people do. But I think the thing that turned it for me was really taking some action, thinking about what I want to do and really taking the steps with the help of my family and friends and support system. Just, hey, here's something, go ahead and take that step. We have your back, you're supported. So really just taking action to go to the next thing. That was big for me. And now coming into this present time where COVID has just caused a lot of anxiety. I lost my grandmother back in July with, as a result of COVID. It's just been really, really a tough time. Just anxious about, I have an older parent who you worry about certain things. And so again, really, as soon as I feel that anxiousness or worry, just really being intentional about telling myself, you can't worry, that hasn't happened. Everybody's still here, everybody's good.
Right.
And just really moving into action, like really being thankful. And I think gratitude has helped a lot when anxiety is set in for me. Just really grateful for where I am, the space I'm in, able to give people hope. So that's really helped going from anxiety to a place of where I can turn that into action and giving hope.
Well, and Joy, we have been part of your action. We are incredibly blessed that you joined our team by getting certified as a sports life coach and in that season of really transition and being able to use that now as another credential that you have to really serve and support people. And I think that's just an example from an action perspective, sometimes saying yes, even if you don't know that much about it or you don't know what it will lead to, you just know that you are looking for an action that takes you forward rather than you staying stuck or even going backwards from that perspective. So being able to say yes, I'm going to do something with it with the support of your team is just so valuable when we think about how do we really respect that we have anxiety and find a way to move into an action that's for us.
Yeah.
And who knows what adventure will show up, right? Because I
Right.
mean, you had no idea what you were getting into, and
Right.
here we are. I think it's been 3 or 4 years, and we're on the journey together, starting to figure this out. And times are changing constantly, and we're ready for that. We've got some tools and we've got some things to do with that. So I want to talk about again that champion team. That's what our conversation started with, how to build that champion team. Let's just talk about the character code of a team because the character code is so valuable in terms of integrity, doing the right thing, what happens on and off the court, what really that whole person development. What are your thoughts are on the character code?
I think it's incredibly important, starting with integrity. Obviously, that's something that I've always really been a big value for me, and just really doing things the right way, being honest about things. A lot of times you look at championship programs and people talk about culture, the word culture is thrown around a lot, but I think that really you have to live it day to day. It's really important. And it was always important when I recruited to really try to find people that were pretty high character or came from high character families. And everybody makes mistakes, especially, we're talking about during that time, high school kids coming into college, and everybody goes through their period. I know I did, where it's kind of like, but I think the inherent part of who people are is, if they're a good person, I think that still comes out, and they want to do the right things. And, I mentioned kind of rolling the dice, but I think in terms of really feeling your gut, like, this is a good person, I can help this person. And they might need molding, they might need some help
Right.
along the way, but really the character code is huge. And really, again, figuring out the right questions, asking those people, listening to their story, just really getting a feel for who people are. Because I think in a very good team, championship teams, you hear those coaches at the end of it, when you watch championship games, talk about their team being unselfish, talking about their team not caring who gets credit. And I think that all speaks to their character. You can, and there might be differing opinions, but you might be on a team and have a athlete scoring 40 points a game, but just not a very good person, not very good character. And so really, how well is that team going to do? Are they going to be able to sustain success? Because I think character plays a really big part in being able to sustain a championship level organization or program or whatever it is, whether it's the coaching staff, the players, everybody's a part of that. So the character code is huge in my mind in building a champion.
And so, yeah, that character code is so valuable to you as a coach, to the staff, to the university, to the bosses, to the organization. I mean, on every level. Let's talk about it from an athlete perspective, because if we know every coach is looking for our character code, wants to know what our character code is, that's something that we don't always develop, or we don't always coach, or we're not intentional about training our athletes and really understanding how powerful and how important their character code is. I know, as one of our sports life coaches, you specialize in working with athletes transitioning from into the college game, into the pro game, and because there's really, that's a sweet spot of understanding how to take your game to the next level. And you are a phenomenal transition coach for us from a sports life coaching perspective. So part of that character code development happens in that intentional coaching of really training in that transition. So tell us about that journey.
It's been really good. I think the thing that I've seen in athletes that are transitioning, in college, you're in a cocoon, so to speak, and you have this support system where people are going to make sure you eat breakfast on time, make sure you have all these things. And so you think about that, you have that for 4 years. You're on a charter plane most of the time, you're doing your thing. And then all of a sudden you become a pro, and it's like, wow, you got to be on your own. I mean, you're playing the sport you love, you're getting paid for it. So those things are good. But the part that I see that some athletes struggle with is really just that being able to figure out, like, what to do next, like how to figure things out, so to speak. And so what I've tried to do is really try to help them, first of all, own their own power, their story, just really be excited about the power that they have as a person, as an athlete, and really figuring that out, figuring out what success means to them, what they want to do. And so in the transition, that's part of that self-awareness. Sometimes you start to realize things that, wow, maybe I didn't realize that was the case, or just trying to really figure out who they are. So
Mhm.
we spend a lot of time just in that initial transition, just really figuring out who they are, what's works for them, what they don't like, just really wanting them to develop as a person and then move into the other aspects. So it's been fun, really enjoying that, and especially having that experience on the pro level and a long time at the college level, just really being able to help with that.
And really just understanding, starting to define who I am as a person as an athlete, as, just a woman or, whatever role I'm in, as a college athlete, we're pretty much told who we're going to be. And, we're a student athlete, our time is completely filled up. And then when we get to go to the pros, we have our own time. The key is, do I perform? I have a job. If I don't, I don't. It's very, very different. So, really respecting that time, energy, and emotional management, learning to take care of my well being, and defining what is my definition of success. How do I define winning? Love, love, love your definition of just empowering people to understand who they are, what's important to them. And that's the beginning of developing their character code, just really how to unlock really their potential and everything that matters to them. So, Joy, thank you for letting us be on the journey to finding joy in competitive greatness. And who better than you to really take us through that? So, thank you very much for that.
You, Carlette. Thanks for having me.
So, coaches, it's up to you this week. Go out, be a champion for you and for your team. Start to think about developing your character code and what does that look like, and know that we are on your support team.